Dad, it is Friday, June 21st, and it's Friday. We'll start with good news. Is there any good news that you want to break to us?
Well, not really, but okay, I'll try. I always try and I fail, usually miserably. But uh, the major escalations that we seem to be on the verge of, which could have not taken place yet. So
Okay.
then the world is still here.
Is
We're
there any
still
sign that it's waning? Are you
not really. I mean, it just again, you never know. Deceit is always a part of war, and it's possible that Israel, for example, is deliberately pretending that they're going to shift their focus to Hezbollah in southern Lebanon when they have no such intention. It's just who knows. But I think, I mean, there's still reports coming out that they have, in fact, for example, Israel has in fact made this decision to invade, and they're going ahead with the initial preparatory steps. So yeah, there's really
so no good news?
yeah. I'm sorry.
So
Yeah, okay.
okay,
So
so
anyway,
so
but the bad news hasn't happened yet, but it probably
right.
will.
So just for anybody listening, we're predicting two imminent major events, and that is Israel invading Lebanon to go after Hezbollah and a major Russian offensive. Um, and so right now, you still believe in both of those predictions that both of those
Yeah,
are imminent, right?
I do. Yeah, and, yeah. So I mentioned, yeah, there's still like the most recent news out of Israel is that, yeah, again, Netanyahu, has made this decision. It's going to happen, and it's just a question, in the near future. That's still the leaks that are coming out of Israel, the reports that are appearing in the Israeli media, and then in Ukraine, actually, there's maybe additional evidence that there's something big on the horizon. Apparently the Ukrainians have moved a lot of troops and equipment to the border north of Kiev, actually the border with Belarus, and they don't have a lot of extra equipment and forces to play around with. So it seems to me, if they did something like that, they really are worried about some sort of strike, maybe across the border towards Kiev. Um, so that's an indication that they do think something's in on the near horizon. Um, One thing and another kind of escalation or counter escalation that may occur very soon is that right there at those two towns in Kharkov, Volchansk and Litsy, where fierce battles have been ongoing. There are many reports that the Ukrainians are massing forces there and are preparing for some sort of counteroffensive. So they may attempt, to launch a major counteroffensive any day. So that could actually precede what the Russian offensive.
Yeah, I heard some rumors that to tell me if this is true that the U.S. and NATO is pressuring Ukraine to do something by the beginning of July. Is that have you heard anything about that?
I've heard those rumors. Yeah.
To prove that they have fight left in them. So
Uh-huh.
it's really pretty sick that well if
Yeah.
that's true what we're trying to do. It's like you have to defeat Russia by yourself, and you have
Uh-huh.
to prove to us and do it now. And
Right.
and it's
Yeah.
because then obviously the Russian if this is true, then Russia's aware of it. And they're like, okay, we'll just sit here and wait for you to come and bash
Right.
up against our defenses.
Yeah, no, I've heard some rumors of that. I guess it wouldn't surprise me too much because you think about, what happened last year, the big summer offensive of last year. There was talk about what they were doing, and it was, they even had a trailer for it, whatever. Nothing was hidden, and the Western leaders were quite open about their impatience. You guys have got to do this. This is important. We need to see this. So I wouldn't be surprised if something similar is happening again.
Are you able to substantiate those rumors at all?
I haven't been. Yeah, I'm not sure. I've seen them, but that's but
Yeah,
only
I
a few here and
okay.
there. It just it's all I can say is it's believable. I don't know that they're true or not, but it could very well be true.
Mm. And then with regards to what's happening in Israel right now, do you what is how is the U.S. responding to these events? You know, the idea that there is going to be an incursion into southern Lebanon, a major offensive. It seems like what we might be saying to the Ukrainians is, well, you got to attack first and show us that you're capable of
Uh,
winning this fight, and so they're pushing for a counteroffensive, which just seems insane to me. Well, how
right.
is the U.S. government in responding to the situation in Israel? Are they putting cold water on it? Are they saying that
Yeah.
we will back you if you go into Lebanon? What's the
Right.
situation?
Well, no, it's actually very different in Israel. They are trying to dissuade the Israelis. That's what all the reports, point to. That we do not want an expansion of this war. Biden desperately wants to avoid it. He felt like there was a close call with Iran, and now, okay, but and he wants to also prevent the expansion of the war into to southern Lebanon. Um, but as we said, so I'm sure the Americans are doing what they can to pressure the Israelis, yeah, but they don't really, again, have any leverage, because the Netanyahu understands that he controls the levers of power back in the U.S. Um, and if he decides to call it off, I would guess that he probably got some other concession out of the U.S. Whatever that might be. I don't know, but because I think he's in a position of power, he can do it if he wants to. And apparently, he's decided to do it. That's what the latest rumors are saying. And I don't think the U.S. can do anything to prevent it. If he really is set on doing it, he'll do it. And it's not just him. I think it's the IDF, which is important. I mean, the IDF is a very, very powerful institution. I think, from what I understand, it has even more authority, than the Pentagon does in the U.S. And then Netanyahu has his relationship. I'm not completely clear on this, but it's different than, let's say, the relationship of a U.S. president to U.S. military forces. The U.S. president is commander in chief. Netanyahu is not actually commander in chief. He's the president, so he can tell, I guess, give the IDF, broad instructions, or declare what their objectives should be, but he doesn't actually issue, orders in the same manner that a U.S. president would. Um, so you do see these conflicts actually between the IDF and Netanyahu. But on the question of Lebanon, if anything, it sounds like the IDF, or at least some factions in the IDF, are more eager to do it than he is. There was actually some complaints that, like, he was, um, you know, doing things. This is often a complaint about Netanyahu, that he's more interested in his own personal survival than, what's best for Israel. And then there are some Israeli generals, who think that we really should be focusing on Hezbollah, and he's playing these games and delaying. But the latest news again is that, yeah, he's decided to go with it.
What would an invasion of Lebanon look like from the IDF? Will they just start carpet bombing Beirut?
Well, they've done that in the past. I mean, they've caused extensive damage to Beirut and other parts of Lebanon, and they're threatening to do the same. I remember back, I guess it was in 2006, that there was a threat to bomb Lebanon back to the Stone Age, a threat by the you know, Israelis. And they didn't quite do that, but they did very serious damage, in parts of Lebanon where it's just nothing but piles of rubble. So I'm sure there would be an extensive air campaign um, that would probably precede, a ground invasion. I think they're, I don't know. I would understand. I They have reasons to be, cautious, or, let's say, reluctant to do either. Because, let's say, if they launch the air campaign, okay, we don't know. The air defense is a question mark, right? That we're not quite sure, and maybe nobody really knows outside of Hezbollah what kind of air defense capabilities they have. There was a story about Hezbollah air defense chasing away an F-16, recently.
Did they
If that's
say what
true,
that air defense was? They say,
No, so it's kind of, I don't know exactly what it is,
yeah.
and it may be, perhaps it's, it was just a rumor. I don't know. So that's just a big question mark. Do they have air defense? Do they have sufficient air defense to actually start shooting down Israeli jets? We'll find out. But even if they don't, the thing is they have a retaliatory capability, a very powerful one. Um, there were recently, I think it was actually an Israeli air defense general or commander, made the statement that, look, Hezbollah has better like missile capabilities than many, many state armies around the world. Now, Hezbollah is, of course, is not a state army. It's actually kind of a parastate, right, militia. It's not actually the army of Lebanese state, but it's a local militia within Lebanon. But he said, don't let that cause you to underestimate them. They've got a very considerable missile force. So the thing is, even if they don't have the air defense, and we'll find out, if Israel starts bombing, the thing is they can bomb Israel back and they can cause just as much damage. And the thing is, like, okay, the Lebanese have been through this before, and of course
Tel
they don't
Aviv
like it. It's
has
awful.
not.
They haven't, right? Exactly. I mean, again, you're kind of, you're dealing with first world people that are just kind of assume these things don't happen to us. We get to bomb other people, but they can't bomb us back, right? So,
Mm.
but Hezbollah can bomb them back. They can bomb Tel Aviv. They can. Just the other day, they had a reconnaissance drone.
I
Hezbollah
saw
sent
that.
one. Yeah, and it went over Haifa, a city that's
Mm.
in northern Israel. And I can't remember how long it was, like but it was what, half an hour or something. They just circling over Haifa and just taking video footage of various installations and so forth. And it
Mm.
was so it flew out there, came back, and then they released it. And they said they actually have hours more footage, but it was just a demonstration of what they know and what they can do. And it was a great embarrassment for the Israelis.
Yeah, it just seems like such a emotional response to carpet bomb Beirut, to start bombing a city like that. Short-sighted and counterproductive. I mean, first of all, if you start bombing population centers like this is what really will make you even more of a pariah than you already
Yeah,
are. It will solidify Hezbollah. They will feel more like they are in the right, and Arab nations will rally behind them. The citizens will rally behind them. And you will just be creating more and more enemies for you. You carpet bomb a populated city center and kill a bunch of civilians. Think about all those brothers that will want to avenge their family members, and it's so silly. And then, like you said, this will give them carte blanche to rain missiles on Tel Aviv, which is
right.
something that Israel has never experienced. And I think we will see Israel really begin to empty out when that happens. Because, like you said, Beirut, Lebanon has been living through this. And basically, everybody around Israel
Yeah,
has been subjected to, like, okay, yeah, planes come over and drop bombs in cities and blow up people and civilians die.
right,
It's just part of life. They're able to
right.
handle it.
Yeah,
The
they
Israelis
don't like
won't.
it.
They don't like it.
Right.
Of course,
Yeah,
nobody likes
right.
it, but that's been their reality for decades.
Yeah,
But Israel is going to experience something that it's never experienced before. They had a taste of it with Iran, and they're sending all these warning signals, and it's just suicidal, that this idea. So it always amazes me when you say that the IDF wants to do this, or Netanyahu wants
uh-huh.
to do this, and then you say that the U.S. has no leverage here. I feel like this is crazy. We have all the
Yeah, it is
leverage.
crazy.
We
Right.
we
No, it
we,
is.
we can say no. We
Yeah,
can say don't give them
right,
weapons, but we're going
right,
to,
right. But
and they're
yeah,
going to
but
do
the thing
this.
is, yeah, I think it's clear that the Biden administration does not want this to happen. It would be a huge headache for them, not before the election anyway. And but the thing is that if it does happen, they simply can't say no. If they try to cut off the funds, then they're gonna pay for it. It's just the donor class in the U.S. is going to express their displeasure and go to even longtime supporters of the Democrat Party are going to go over to to Trump. And, he's positioning himself as the true friend of Israel. And he will, and he could very well win a victory as a result. That's what Biden is looking at. So, he just doesn't want to do that. I don't think he can. And, plus, it's not just a matter of, his own political instincts, his desire to become reelected. I don't know. I think he'd be much happier in an old folks' home. But he is a committed Zionist. I mean, we can't forget that. I mean, both of those things are true.
It just doesn't make sense to me that our politics are about who can outdo themselves on who's a better friend to Israel. That should be the a negative. That's something that should really be hurting a politician. But now they're all bending over backwards.
If Trump was serious about make America great and putting America first, he wouldn't be doing this.
But do you think the majority of Americans, they don't support what Israel's doing, right? They don't.
Yeah, I think that's
can't
true.
support
the majority
this.
Don't. It's a combination. Well, yeah, it's mainly an elite obsession with a lot of these foreign wars. But there is a real base in, unlike for Ukraine, that there really is no base in the U.S. that's just totally committed to war with Russia and Ukraine. That doesn't exist in the U.S. That is just that obsession, with that Russophobic obsession really only exists within, the elite. You just don't find it on the street anywhere. But there is, Israel really does have a base. We have both the Christian Zionists and Jewish Zionists. And the Christian Zionists are important because of their numbers, and the Jewish Zionists are important because of their money and their, the fact that they control a lot of leading institutions. And together, they make a pretty powerful force. I think you look at total numbers, you would find most people would be in favor, especially on the Democrat side of the spectrum. Definitely, most people will be in favor of a ceasefire, of actually cutting off the arms supplies to Israel. But that's not how, power really works. In the end, it's power that matters, and it's not just votes. People's votes can be bought or can be, let's say, misdirected. That's just long been true in this country.
Yeah. Okay. So, then the U.S. is going to back Israel when this happens. What does that backing look like? What does it mean when we're going to support Israel? We won't let Israel lose. What does that mean for the United States? Does that mean that troops on the ground, naval bombardments, airstrikes? Well, what are we talking about?
Right. I think you were talking about naval bombardments and above all airstrikes. That's what it would be. And it would not be troops on the ground. Reagan actually made that mistake back during the first Lebanon invasion in the early 1980s. And that's, of course, there was a bombing of the Marine barracks that led to the deaths of something like 250 U.S. Marines. And he very wisely, it was a stupid decision to go in there, but he pretty quickly decided, well, this was a stupid decision, and he pulled out. It seems like we can't really do that anymore. We always double down. And so, I think they're going to do whatever they can. I don't see troops on the ground, but they certainly could do, provide naval and air support. And actually, there is a recent report that there are rushing air defense capabilities to Israel. And I think because a lot of holes have been poked in the air defense system in northern Israel, and everyone is aware that of the formidable arsenal that Hezbollah has that could really overwhelm the systems that they have. So the U.S. apparently is sending some of their air defense systems. I don't think it's the Patriot system, which...
I was about to say, you said that they mothballed the Patriot system, so what are we sending,
Yeah, it's a couple of systems I'm not familiar with, but they're sending them there, and we'll see.
How effective do you think even naval bombardments and airstrikes would be in fighting a force like Hezbollah?
I don't think it would be very effective. Look what's happened in Yemen.
That's what I was about to say. The Houthis,
for like the last 6 months or so. and they're still, just the other day, they sunk another ship, you know?
I heard a Greek
Right.
vessel.
So, yeah. And again, Yemen is just so much poorer and weaker than Hezbollah is. And Hezbollah, again, has been preparing for this for, well over a decade. And my
Mm.
understanding is that, like Hamas, they've got a lot of their facilities underground. And, these air superiority can only do so much, and can't really do very much at all uh, when your enemy is underground.
And also, I mean, well, won't Hezbollah just turn its missiles onto the U.S. Navy and sink
Well,
some
there's a
U.S.
risk of that. There
battleships?
certainly is. Or, and they've actually threatened, um, or it was Nasrallah, the Hezbollah leader, um, threatened Cyprus because, Cyprus is a very close ally of Israel and
Mm.
provides, a lot of support, logistical support to Israel and to the U.S. And he said, well, if you're providing support to attacks on Lebanon, well, in the past, we couldn't do anything about it, but we can do something now. In other words, they have missiles that can reach Cyprus. So, yeah, certainly they could strike ships, and they have threatened to do that.
Okay, so this could happen soon, right? Let's just kind of play. Let's just play this out.
Okay.
Israel goes in, starts to carpet bomb Beirut, comes in with the ground force. All of a sudden, Hezbollah unleashes missile barrages and drones. We might see something similar like what Iran did, overwhelms the air defense systems. Rockets rain down on Tel Aviv, potentially the population center, not just military targets. If Israel bombs Beirut,
Right.
the U.S. comes in and starts bombing Lebanon from the sea with its and carrying out airstrikes with its aircraft carriers and bases in the Middle East. Then Hezbollah can sink some of these ships. Now what happens? And what will Iran and Russia and China do as this thing escalates? How do you this can get
Uh-huh.
very dangerous very quick.
Yeah.
It's scary. So can you maybe map out your likely
Well,
scenario? I know
yeah,
there's
yeah,
an infinite
yeah.
number of variables that will turn it in different directions, but
Yeah, right. Nobody knows what will happen, but yeah, that's the thing. It's like what do you say? There's never a plan that survives. In war, plan never actually survives the first day of contact with the enemy. In other
right,
words,
right. Everything just goes
right,
out the window.
yeah,
Right. Yeah.
right. It's just chaos, because the thing is, the enemy has a say in what you want to do. You can draw up plans, but the enemy's got a plan. You don't know what it is, and your plans collide, and who knows what the
Well,
chaos ensues. But anyway, yeah. Well, I guess first I'd say that we don't know that they're going to start off with a bombardment of Beirut. That maybe they will focus on military targets. That would be the professional thing to do. But we just don't know with the Israelis. I mean, if they go after Hezbollah in the way that they went after Hamas, then yeah, they might start off by carpet bombing Beirut because we know that so-called war has really been an attack on the civilian population. So there's no reason that they couldn't do that in Lebanon, but we don't know that they will. Maybe they will be more focused on military objectives. We'll see. Um, but in any case, yeah, if it's a major attack, um, I I think you would see, a, a calibrated response. They if um, the Hezbollah, I don't think would go all out, like would release, go straight to a total retaliation, but they would certainly escalate and they would strike probably, military bases, let's say, for example, like air bases or whatever around Haifa or whatever, and do real damage. It'd be different from the Iranian attack because that was really just kind of a show. That's what that was all about. We're letting you know what we can do. We're not doing it now, but I think if Israel really attacks in a major way, Hezbollah's retaliation will inflict serious damage. It's not going to be show. It's going to be a real escalation, and then we could just go up that escalatory ladder, to the point where yeah, Israel begins to, well, we begin to see the possibility anyway that Israel could lose. Now, in something similar happened in 1973. It was the Yom Kippur War, in which for a while it looked like Israel actually could lose. They were put on their back foot, against the Syrian and Egyptian armies. And the U.S. interviewed not directly, but in that case by just by flooding Israel, supplying Israel with massive amounts of equipment to help them turn the tide, and then they did, right? But it scared them, it was sort of a close call, or it seemed to be for a while anyway. Um, Now in this case, but I think he actually in that war, I mean, the fighting took place on the front lines. It wasn't brought home, to the population centers, to Tel Aviv, for example. But this really could strike Tel Aviv, and this is something, again, we've talked about Israel is they're obsessed with this, with maintaining their deterrence. In other words, they want, to maintain this image of invincibility and of having this capability um, of wielding, just or wreaking horrific destruction on anybody who dares to challenge them. And now, if you see, let's say Tel Aviv in flames or Haifa, burning, um, that is going to be, a psychological blow much greater than, well, what we saw on October 7th. That obviously really struck the Israeli psyche and has led to the carnage that ensued. So if that happens, I don't know. Israel itself, if it hadn't at that point started carpet bombing Beirut, I think it probably would. And, in a really attempt to bomb Lebanon back to the Stone Age. And then the screams back in the U.S., the pressure on the U.S. administration to intervene would be, I think, just impossible to resist in that case, and then we would intervene. And I think again, it would just be, um, you know, with our Air Force and and quite possibly with the Navy as well. But I doubt that it really would do very much. I don't. That's the thing, I
Mm.
think again we saw what happened in Yemen. I mean, it just um, to really defeat Hezbollah, you'd have to go in on the ground with battle-hardened troops that are well trained for rooting people out of tunnels. And I don't think Israel or the U.S. has those kind of troops. So then we're just looking at a mess. Um, well, I don't see Russia or China, intervening directly. They would put all kinds of diplomatic pressure, but that's all. I think all that they could do. Um, but possibly Iran. I don't know. They're very cautious, actually. They're very careful, but they are very closely allied with Hezbollah. They have very strong ties to Hezbollah.
Mm.
And I don't think Iran would take the first step, but it may be that Israel would say, if they see themselves losing, then this is the time to make it a general war, and make sure that the U.S. Commits itself totally. So they may do something like what they did, in when they took out that consulate attached to the embassy in Damascus, some sort of provocation which would be almost sure to bring in the Iranians. Um, and then, yeah, then we have just a general regional war, and I don't even want to say what that would mean. But
Mm. Well, there's the first presidential debate is coming up in 6 days. Do you think that Netanyahu may want to do the invasion and attack Lebanon before the debate starts off to make sure that the whole debate is just wrapped up in who loves Israel more and who's going to make sure that Israel has the right to exist and defend itself? Because it seems like that's Netanyahu's game, is
yeah,
to have a competition on who is more supportive of Israel. Biden has done everything to Israel
right,
except he suspended one shipment of 2,000-pound bombs, and I'm sure you saw that clip
right,
of Netanyahu saying that I can't believe it's inconceivable that the United States would suspend a
yeah,
shipment while we're fighting for our existence. So it almost seems like he's trying to give Trump a little batting would be to attack Biden on this and to maybe
Yeah,
make the debate stage all
right.
about who loves Israel more, who's going to support Israel in their time of need during
Uh-huh.
this war. This is just something that crossed my mind.
Yeah.
I don't
Well,
know. Do you
I
think
think that's
that's
certainly possible. First of all, Netanyahu, he's a wily politician and he really understands American politics. And also, he clearly favors Trump, which,
mm,
I think might be kind of foolish that he should try to, actually, maintain neutral, just be as bipartisan as possible. But I think he really dislikes Biden and the Democrats, and he does favor Trump. I mean, there's that's long been known about him. Recently, yeah, there was, he made the statements about the U.S., failing to provide the arms that Israel needs, and apparently it left the Biden administration officials just furious. He said this was just coming. They've actually, been doing whatever,
yeah, bending over
whatever he
backwards
asks
to
for something, they ask them to jump, they always answer how high. It's just like there was that one delay a few weeks ago, and that was about it. And it's so he was. Seemed like a completely gratuitous, attack on the Biden administration. And again, they're furious about it, but they can't do anything because they just know that if they really, they can grumble about it, and there's some leaks to the press about how they're mad about what Netanyahu said this thing, but Netanyahu probably thinks, well, so who cares? They're still giving him, and I know they will because they don't dare actually disobey me,
yeah. It's just so crazy to me that if Netanyahu prefers Trump, Biden is given Netanyahu a blank check, sent him $26 billion in military aid this year on top of the $3 billion that we normally give them, has done everything for Biden. He let him go into bomb Rafah, whatever, and then still, and Netanyahu treats Biden like garbage and talks to him like this, and Biden still feels like he has no control. He can't say no.
yeah.
Why? He supports his political. Netanyahu supports Biden's political enemy. Why is Biden giving him Netanyahu everything if Netanyahu hates Trump? I mean, hates Biden and
Yeah.
isn't thankful for any of the help that
Yeah.
Biden is giving. It's
Yeah. Well, yeah, again, it's just the case of the tail wagging the dog. I mean, this is, I saw recently, it was an interview of John Mearsheimer. He's a famous, probably the most famous, um, real, advocate
academic
or,
scholar.
yeah, in the area of, they call, foreign policy realism. Say that essentially, the best way to understand the world is that nations pursue their strategic interests, and these, that is kind of the framework that you need to look at all kinds of situations, and it's on that framework that you can make the most accurate predictions and so forth. But he fully acknowledges that there's one place where his theory doesn't work at all, where it's turned on its head, and that is the U.S.-Israel relationship. It's the case here again of the tail wagging the dog. It should be that the U.S., the much more powerful partner, is going to pursue its strategic interests in the Middle East, and just kind of adjust its relationships accordingly in that area. But it doesn't. I mean, in the end, it's not the U.S. that calls the shots; it's Israel that calls the shots, and that's just the fact. It doesn't matter. Here, Biden is the president of the so-called most powerful nation in the world, but he just doesn't dare cross this guy he hates, Netanyahu. He just has to. He has to suck it up. He can grumble about it. He can make leaks, but in the end, and Netanyahu knows it. He probably thinks it's all funny, but in the end, Netanyahu has his way.
It's absolute insanity. Well, Israel has nuclear weapons. We all know that. What are the delivery systems that Israel has available for its nuclear arsenal? Like, where could it
Well,
strike? Because
yeah,
if it gets scary fast, that's going to be the question on everybody's mind. Is what's the Samson option going to look like for
yeah.
Israel?
Well, okay. They do have F-16s and F-35s, right?
Mm,
They don't seem to have a very good like a refueling capacity. They're dependent largely on the U.S. for long term. So an F-16 or an F-35 can only travel so far before it needs to refuel. And it would, if they did exercise the Samson operation, these could be suicide missions. I don't know how
One
far an
way.
F-16. It would be
Mm,
one way, right?
right.
They also have some submarines, and that's my understanding of those. Those are the two main vehicles. They don't have a very um, have much of a missile force. It's which is the normal way to deliver them. But unless this has been hidden or something, I have not come across any information on of a formidable Israeli missile arsenal,
Right.
ground to ground-based missile arsenal.
Right. I mean, when we saw their retaliation against Iran's barrage into Israel, I was kind of surprised. I'm like, can Israel even hit Iran? It didn't even seem like they were able
Yeah,
to. Like, they
right.
just had a few little drones that seemed to be launched within Iran. Maybe they're Mossad agents that they activated. But I
I
just,
think I think they can. I think they do have missiles that can launch. You know, they're not missiles, rather submarines that can launch missiles that strike Iran, so they could launch them from the Persian Gulf. And I suppose on a suicide mission, with their aircraft, they could hit Iran, but it would have to be, yeah, again, a one-way mission.
yeah, well, Iran does have air defense systems as well, right? I mean,
Right.
they have the S-300s. They could, potentially shoot down an F-16.
Yeah, they certainly could.
Um, okay, well, I hope we don't go or it doesn't come to that, but it's something I think people need to think about. That if rockets start raining down on Tel Aviv, all of a sudden the Samson option starts to be on the table.
Yeah.
We got to look at how it
Yeah,
could
no,
be
it's very
delivered and how
scary,
it could.
right? Obviously, we're not there yet. It may be averted, um, nothing is etched in stone, but we are, approaching,
Mm.
the edge of a precipice. I think
So,
there's no question about it.
well, what do you think about my theory about the invasion starting before the presidential debate on the 27th in 6 days?
Um, well, I think that's possible. Again, um, uh, Netanyahu is a keen observer of U.S. politics, and yeah, he might want to help Trump, and maybe he figures that such a move would help him. I think he does want to help Trump. I think it's more than he might. I think it's certain, pretty much, um, pretty certain that he does. He may be worried about what Biden might do if Biden wins, after the election, because there are pressures within the Democrat Party to uh, maybe impose a ceasefire. And he just might think that, okay, Biden might eventually cave into those pressures.
Hmm.
Yeah, if, but only after he wins the election. But I think maybe he feels safe with Trump.